Good Friday morning. We're back with
Good
another
Friday.
It doesn't feel like Friday. I don't know what's going on here.
I'm not done my weekend either.
All right. But we are back with the final episode of the week of Go FUD Yourself. Whoop, whoop. What are we talking about, my friend?
Great question. We have to talk about the brand new news that came out this morning for me, evening time for our Asiatic friends, which is that Hong Kong might approve their Ether ETF by Monday. That's a pretty big deal. And then we've got to talk about the SEC and Uniswap, which is like such a funny topic. But if we don't talk about it, Twitter will hate us. We got a couple things about meme coins. We got a couple things about Meta and what's going on with that case. And then there was a really big, bank heist in like cyberbank heist in Canada. And Nikki, it's super funny that you found that. Our producer found that one. I had found it and I couldn't figure out if it was like a joke article or not, but apparently it's real. So
No, it's real. That's exciting. Let's talk about some cyber bank thefts. I kind of in my head picture like, you know, the old like masks that the robbers used to wear?
Exactly.
Like back in the day, like the Bonnie and Clyde era. That's kind of how I picture all of these, like, instead of imagining all these like hackers in like some closet somewhere, getting beaten by whips to like actually hack into this stuff. I choose to not think of that, but rather assume that they're all driving around in like Model Ts, you know, really fast with their like arm out the window and a cigarette hanging out their mouth while they're
hazard.
I've really given this a lot of thought.
Yeah, one of them's driving around and they've got like Starlink on the top, and then the other one has like a mask on and is hacking. Yeah, totally. That's what I'm here for.
Running from the cops, and like the minions are there because they're their new henchmen. Oh man, we could really get out of hand with this. All right, let's freaking go.
Happy Friday.
All right. Okay, so we're back to seriousness now. We're gonna jump over. I know we're gonna jump over to Hong Kong because 2 days ago, or was that yesterday?
Oh, today, like now.
No. 2 days ago or yesterday, we talked about this being like a thing, but nobody really expected it to be a real thing, and here we are. So, anyways, what came out yesterday, last night, whatever the timeline is, Hong Kong is on the brink of approving a spot Bitcoin and Ether ETFs, a move anticipated to have significant market repercussions for cryptocurrencies. Bloomberg reports suggest approval could come as early as Monday, with potential trading starting by month end. This development follows the US's approval of Bitcoin ETFs, leading to a price surge. The decision's impact on Hong Kong's position as a digital asset hub in Asia is closely watched. Is this unlocking a whole bunch of new liquidity, you think?
It could. We do talk about Hong Kong being like one of the central points, one of the main cities, maybe the crypto hub of the world, and they are vying for that, right? They're going to approve these ETFs before Europe. They're going to approve these ETFs before the States. That's a pretty big deal. It's weird to me that the States were like, heck yeah, Bitcoin, but still haven't approved the ETFs. Like, I don't know what.
They weren't heck yeah, but Bitcoin, I don't think that's a problem. Is they were heck no Bitcoin, but then they got pressured into having to approve it by BlackRock, who funds most of their political campaigns.
Yeah.
To sum up, so Hong Kong's kind of interesting because a few months ago, for some reason, we don't take Hong Kong very seriously. Like often we hear news of like, well, I don't. Often we hear news, and I for some reason discount it as it not being likely to happen. I don't know why. So the last time that they were talking about this kind of wave of approvals for like hedge funds and venture firms with digital assets in Hong Kong, I thought that was going to take forever. They weren't going to approve anybody. And then within a month or two, I know a bunch of people that were approved for those licenses. So, I mean, Hong Kong proved me wrong once. I still underestimated them on this Bitcoin ETF approval, thinking that the CCP was still going to play politics with them.
Hold on. I've got to dive into this. Why don't you believe in Hong Kong?
It's not that I don't believe in Hong Kong. It's just so far when it comes to regulation, everybody has been so flip-floppy and so non-committal that it's hard to trust what any jurisdiction says. I mean, yeah, it might be approved. It might not. Oh, we're going to try this. Just kidding. We're going to do this. So just kidding.
I'll take that.
And so I just kind of feel like whenever somebody says, hey, we're going to do this and we're excited about it, I think, yeah, okay, I'll believe it when I see it. Well, here we are. I think this is great. Honestly, a lot of, mainland China have business ties, and there's a lot of financial ties to Hong Kong. So it's relatively simple, even if you can't buy Bitcoin necessarily in China. There's ways via Hong Kong, via ETFs, and via these other projects or products that they could get exposure legally. To me, this is
cool. How fast this is going, actually. Like, it could be as early as Monday, but they think by the end of the month for sure. The only thing that's a bit weird in terms of liquidity that I want to get your opinion on is the halving. So if you take a look at all of the news and all the Twitter news about pricing and et cetera right now, everything's kind of in a slump because it's pre-halving. So if they approved the Bitcoin ETF on Monday, do you think that would like counteract it, or do you think it won't get that much hype because it's right before halving?
It's a good question. I definitely don't have a crystal ball, and I surely wouldn't be trading Bitcoin in the wake of this news. Personally, not financial advice. Go for it if you want. But it's incredibly uncertain. So if this comes out, like, you got to like game theory this whole thing, and this is kind of this is why day trading is awfully challenging and near impossible. There's very, very, very few people that day trade successfully with any amount of consistency, because everything is so bloody volatile, and you're constantly thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead. What are the other holders thinking, et cetera, et cetera. And so when it comes to the halving, like, we don't have a consistent expectation of what happens. It's been different every single time, and all of the news and the surrounding macro environment is very different this time than any halving before. So it's just really uncertain. I think we'll probably see some positive momentum on an announcement here, because the dollar value of liquidity coming from Asia as a consequence of this could be quite significant, at least as much as the US, in my opinion. So it should be seen as a huge positive. That being said, there's a ton of uncertainty still about the halving. And I mean, people might be trying to play your hype against you if you're getting too excited about this thing. So I don't know. It's a very uncertain time. My suggestion has been for weeks, don't try to trade the halving. If anything, just pick really good entry points. If it dips down, take them. If it doesn't, so be it. Because it's so hard to predict. So I don't know. I wish I had an answer for you. Good question.
May as well.
All right.
Okay, let's jump into the SEC and Twitter. Is this the only thing that your Twitter feed had? Because it's the only thing my Twitter feed had all things on day yesterday. And the memes weren't even that good. People are just actually so mad that they're not making very good jokes. So the American SEC has filed against Uniswap, which is obviously one of the biggest DeFi platforms ever. So just yesterday, Uniswap Labs received a Wells notice indicating forthcoming legal challenges, which raises concerns about regulatory clarity and the potential impact of the decentralization of DeFi in the States. What I thought was really interesting about this is nobody's really clear exactly about what they're being sued about or what's being investigated. And there is some really great quotes coming out of that. So, for example, Bill Hughes, who's the senior counsel and director of global regulatory matters at Consensus, in an interview about this said, the SEC is very imaginative in the ways that you can be violating their rules. Some people think this has to do with the governance token. Others think this has to do with just the size of the Uniswap protocol. I don't know. Why do you think this is happening, JD?
So there's really, now I'm not an attorney, so this is not legal advice, or this is just
financial advice. You can't give us legal advice.
I can't give any advice. I'm an expert of nothing. I'm just here to just be a bobblehead and talk whatever I'm told to talk about. That being said, there's kind of a few angles to this one that I find puzzling, sort of. I suppose the Uniswap token may be under scrutiny because they did do a fairly sizable airdrop, airdrops have been in question as to whether they are whether that in and of itself deems an asset a security because you did an airdrop. I don't know with certainty. I would suspect probably it's a combination, I would say, of both. The SEC is probably saying they're probably trying to throw the kitchen sink at Uniswap, I would assume, to try to further validate some of their own opinions and perceptions of regulation. We'll have to see. But another thing that has kind of been discussed quite a bit for the last few years is often protocols, all of us will say, hey, like, we're not operating an unregistered financial institution because it is in fact algorithmic. There is no custody. There is no, like, we're not touching any of the funds ourselves, or in fact having any direct control over what happens with the funds, et cetera, et cetera. The argument to the contrary has been that it's the front ends that actually are the gateway into this, and the front end is kind of like a broker, is what they've suggested in the past. This will be really interesting. I think this will be as important, if not more important, than the Coinbase, FTX, and Binance circumstances, Kraken. Those were all quite centralized. It was a lot easier to make the leap, although I still disagree with it, that they maybe were a financial institution of sorts. I don't necessarily think that that should be enforceable. That being said, this is one of the first major tests of a major DeFi protocol. And in terms of its viability in the United States, with the perceived regulation currently, and I suppose the expectation of the future, they're not going to enforce something that can be overturned immediately. So this will be interesting. I think
those of us who are in the space, I just want to point out, because you raised Coinbase and Kraken and how those all set precedent and how we were all rooting for them. And thank goodness they had deep pocketbooks so that they could take care of DeFi. Well, Uniswap has said the same thing already. They've said that they're here, they're ready to a fight. They're not going to just give in and be friendly about it. So I think that's probably a benefit for all the other DEXs looking at this too.
I mean, I'm a pretty big Uniswap fan in general, but I am definitely consciously going to support Uniswap as much as I possibly can now. I mean, there's only we've been saying this for years, actually. There's only a few companies in the space that have the financial wherewithal: Ripple, Coinbase, Kraken, Binance, FTX and the bankruptcy. Like, all of these, there's only a few people that can actually fight any of this in a meaningful way. And the space, like, we're all sitting here dependent upon some sort of decision on this. Because if Uniswap is in fact found to be outside of regulation and compliance, that means pretty much every other protocol in the space that has any touch with the United States is also out of compliance. So I sure hope that we find a way to get through this. And I'm super grateful, honestly, for Hayden and team and for what they've built and the financial resources they've amassed to get to this point. So super stoked on that. Not stoked on the fact that the SEC is trying to do this at this point in time, but that's what we expect from Mr. Gensler and friends. Anyways, getting rid of some of that stuffy nonsense, maybe we can jump over to some meme coins. So this Runes protocol is pretty interesting, actually. If you haven't looked at it, check it out, Runestone. It's all the hype on the Bitcoin ordinals. But what this article says is the hype surrounding Bitcoin meme coin Pups has surged ahead of the anticipated release of the Runes protocol by longtime Bitcoin developer Casey Rodamore. Pups experienced a 50% jump in value in 24 hours, driven by traders' interest in Bitcoin-adjacent tokens like Runes. With Pups leading NFT sales and volumes globally, the upcoming Runes protocol promises faster and cheaper transactions on the Bitcoin network, fueling excitement and virality within the cryptocurrency community. Have you been trading ordinals or paying attention to any of this?
I pay attention a little bit, but I haven't been trading ordinals. I find it really weird to have NFTs on the Bitcoin network. I feel like that's not what it was built for. How's your meme coin portfolio doing, JD?
Oh, it's up only, straight up.
That's what I thought. Sometimes I wonder, okay, so Bitcoin is like a little bit in a slump right now before the halving, right? And people don't want to invest in something that's like a little bit uncertain. They want, and actually, if you take a look at a bunch of the Bitcoin news, even miners have slowed down on purpose pre the halving, et cetera, et cetera. So sometimes I wonder if meme coins, or if this type of investment in something like ordinals, et cetera, is people saying, ooh, I'm bored with my portfolio because I know I'm just to let it sit. So let's do something fun. Because otherwise, I have no idea why Pups would go up to $66 overnight.
So I totally slept on the ordinals thing, which is pretty common, that I sleep on things. So I'm almost always late to the party by the time I actually accept that it's maybe going to happen. But ordinals, I mean, it's a pretty interesting additional use case for Bitcoin and the blockchain itself. And so obviously Bitcoin maxis and most people that have been in the space for a minute think it's pretty interesting. There's a lot of liquidity there. There's a lot of, eyes and spotlight on Bitcoin right now. I think it's pretty interesting. This runestone thing is pretty cool. I've been told by a lot of people to pick up a runestone. Turns out they're pretty expensive. But I guess you got to pay to play in this space. So yeah.
Did you pick up a rune coin? Is your
Not yet.
meme coin portfolio out of this world?
Not yet.
Okay.
I don't know if I will. I have a really hard time pressing the button. I struggle with the meme coin thing. I don't know. Anyways, it's always fun to look at some meme coins. It's always fun to see the kind of community growth and that evangelism and kind of guerrilla marketing is pretty neat. So
fair,
I don't mind it.
All right, let's talk about crypto on regular. So I feel like meme coins on Bitcoin are like a pretty niche degen thing. So let's maybe talk about crypto for everybody. Australian billionaire Andrew Forrest faced a setback as prosecutors dropped criminal charges against Meta regarding scam crypto ads on Facebook. Forrest accused Meta of money laundering violations due to fraudulent ads using his own likeness. The discontinuation of charges highlights challenges in holding tech giants accountable for dubious content. Forrest vows to continue advocating for legal reform while pursuing a separate civil lawsuit against Meta. Okay, before we actually go into the news about this, what would you think if someone used your likeness on a scam ad?
Well, I don't think my likeness carries very much clout, so I'd probably think it was hilarious.
Yeah, okay.
Not permission to do so, obviously.
No, I'm going to do it.
So I would probably think it's funny, but I mean, if I had a bigger public persona or if I was worried about getting canceled or some nonsense, then maybe. Maybe I'd be concerned about it. The problem, in particular in the US, is that right now these social media platforms aren't considered publishers because they claim that they don't create any of the content and so on and so forth. And the counter argument to that is that, well, they are, because they curate the content in terms of who can see what and when. They can completely stop your content from being shown. And in many cases, they have that kind of screening authority. Certain things just don't even get out. Some of your posts just get removed or declined. And for that reason, there's arguments that these social media companies are, in fact, publishers of sorts, and they are editorializing some of the content. We'll have to see how this goes. This is a problem because, yet again, the social media companies are being let off the hook for this type of thing. And I think.
So shocking. Are you surprised?
Sorry?
So shocking, though. Are you surprised they're being let off the hook?
No, not at all. But I mean, what I would love to see is not necessarily that all those rules change. I'm not sure that I want to see an onslaught of class action lawsuits against Facebook and Google and YouTube. I don't think that's good for society. But I would like them to at least at some point publicly take a stand and say, here is what our rules are. Not all this super complex 9,000 pages terms of service that have a bunch of legalese, but like we need to come up with something that people can actually understand and that we're all playing with the same rules. So hopefully.
Maybe this is why France did that whole thing where you have to like take a class to advertise about crypto on social media, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, like, at least they have clear rules, right?
Yeah. I mean, technically, the rules are clear for X and Instagram and Twitter.
Come on.
In theory, if you read the terms of service, have you ever looked at the terms of service?
Yeah, in depth, because I would like to be able to advertise on Twitter.
Yeah, so no person of normal intelligence that isn't an attorney really has any clue what most of that says or what the
it's wild.
It's insane.
Anyways. And then when you try to get customer support, they also don't know what it says, just for the record.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's censorship of sorts, which isn't actually what this guy was claiming. He was just saying, hey, someone used my likeness. You guys let it happen. You didn't confirm that it was me. You didn't confirm that there was permissions or whatever for this image.
I don't know. I guess that does fall to the advertiser. The only thing, I don't want to throw Andrew Forrest under the bus here. I totally get why he's upset. I totally get why he's pushing for this. I don't even necessarily think he's in the wrong. Sometimes that's like the sign that you made it. You know what I mean? I
mean, yeah, if somebody thinks that using my likeness is going to help them, I suppose it's kind of flattering, maybe, but I can assure you it's not going to do you any good because my likeness doesn't do me any good. So I'm not sure if it's going to do anybody else. All
right, let's talk about Canada a little bit.
Okay, fine.
I don't know why I thought that this was a joke article at first. Maybe because most news coming out of Canada right now feels like a joke. If you're Canadian, you'll know why. A $14.2 million cyber heist involving Canadian Western Bank, which is literally just Western Canada. It's not even a huge, wild national level bank. And the BC crypto firm Aqua now has led to a court battle. Hackers utilized an Ottawa man's national bank account for fraudulent transactions, converting the funds into Bitcoin through Aqua now. The saga involves secretive court proceedings, frozen accounts, and accusations against Aqua now, which obviously is cybercrime is complex, so we're not surprised to see all of this, but it is a big legal challenge and it does not put crypto in a good space in Canada, or at least in a good light in Canada. To me, this just seems like a Netflix special.
Yeah, I don't know. This is kind of a lot to do about nothing, in my opinion. This stuff happens all the time. Now, $14 million is excessive, especially for a smaller entity. But I mean, this is why money laundering rules and fraud rules and all of those laws exist currently, is because whether this touched crypto or not, this is still illegal. His national bank account was used to fraudulently secure money from somewhere. And in an effort to fence said money before an AML report would have been possible, because it just happened and they hadn't caught him yet, then he registered for an account with no AML screening, no red flags yet, registered for an account on Aqua now, as far as I understand, not an attorney. Registered for an account, bought Bitcoin, used the e-transfer or the wire on-ramp, which everybody else in Canada would have to do if they wanted to participate. Aqua now probably ran the normal KYC and AML screenings, didn't see anything, gave them the assets, they transferred out, Bob's your uncle. To me, this is kind of, this just highlights more that with technology today, and in some ways the composability of products and companies, more so on blockchain, but even in the real world where you have one company selling another company's products or whatever, this stuff happens. We just got to be careful and vigilant. And
okay, but there's a couple of other wacky doodle things about this, which is, I don't know, this is the uniquely Canada news. So the guy who was impersonated or whose account they used is only 24. So he has a fine credit score, but not an outrageous credit score. He's a very like NPC level financial dude. Okay. Like nobody is worried about his accounts. Get this, the bank didn't tell him that his account had been compromised. They noted it, they stopped it, and then they never alerted him to this occurring. So the way that he found out that this had occurred is that CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, actually contacted him for a quote about the process. And that's how he found out that his account was the one that was part of this, which is kind of why I thought it was a little bit of a joke at first. Obviously, cybersecurity is no joke. I'm not saying the fraud is a joke, but when you hear something like that, how can you, like, where's the due diligence just from the banking side, right? We catch a lot of flack in crypto that we don't have due diligence or that it's a non or what have you. But here's something that's not a non, has a real bank, has the government involved, and they also didn't reach out to him and like involve him in the case at all.
yeah, I mean, it's one of the criticisms of centralization, right? The fact that before you've been proven guilty of anything, in particular in Canada, they can freeze your bank accounts, they can freeze your assets. If you have a political opinion that disagrees with the federal government, like on COVID, they can freeze your bank accounts, levy massive fines, close your businesses, impound your vehicles. I mean, we're slowly moving towards that in a lot of ways on chain. Also, there's, you know, we went from, and this, not necessarily for the wrong reasons, but we are finding that decentralization kind of polar end and centralization polar end, neither are effective in practice. And there's somewhat of a hybrid that will probably evolve. I don't know. I think there's a lot of criticisms around this. He claims that he didn't know about it. Did he? I don't know. How do you prove that?
Yeah, we don't. Whatever.
So like, but the guy hasn't been proven guilty. So how can you completely tear his life apart, freeze all of his bank accounts, publicly defame him?
Well, so they're not doing that. Is the whole thing. Is like they haven't alerted him. His accounts haven't been frozen. His name hasn't been released.
Oh, I understood from the article that his accounts were frozen.
No, and he said that he literally didn't know this was happening.
Oh,
well,
then
that's
I
why
really
I was like, this is real news. Anyway, that's your Friday news roundup. Pretty exciting. Next week we are here Monday and Tuesday, but then we have investigative journalism. JD is at, are you at Token 2049?
Yeah. Well, I'm not right now, but I will be.
No, but you will be. And I'm headed to TED Talks in Vancouver. So we'll come back with some cool stuff.
I'm probably going to base jump the Burj Khalifa, if anybody's wondering.
Are you?
No, I wish I could, but I'm pretty sure it's illegal. A, and B, I've never skydived.
Crypto legality is not your concern.
I've never skydived before, so I don't think base jumping should be the first attempt.
Just start on hard mode, dude. I don't know what the problem is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty brave. We'll see. Maybe we'll get a video of me jumping off the Burj Khalifa, hopefully with a parachute. All right. Okay, everybody, have a great weekend. We've got you covered on Monday. We do have the weekend news roundup on Mondays, so we will be paying attention. Miss Producer will be paying attention. We'll have everything fired up for Monday morning. So go out, enjoy the weekend. It might be a little quiet / really loud next week. Who knows? Halving is coming. Are people going to be quiet because everybody's in Dubai? Maybe. Or is everybody going to be claiming to be prophetic? We'll see. We'll find out what the week brings. We'll circle back with you on Monday. Live show Monday to Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern, except for next week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. What? Subscribe, like, share, do all that stuff. Help us get the word out. All right. With that, I say to you, go FUD yourself. Have a good weekend, guys. Bye.